Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to take my glasses off because the reflection on my screen just messes around, so maybe I should just leave them off altogether. I don't know, I can still see people, so yeah. What I have got, because I'm actually going to be talking about books today, I'm going to run through my books that I read over July. And then I'm going to talk about 4 books that I recommend for August. So because it's all book related, I think you should always have a cup of tea. So I have a cup of tea. Just tea and books go so well together, in my opinion. This is a lovely mug which I got for my birthday a couple of months ago. My sister bought it from a company called Bookishly on Etsy. I don't think they have this one on the shop anymore, but they have other stuff which is really cool. So I will put a link to check them out in my description. And yeah, so gonna have my cup of tea, talk about books. What better thing to do on a Saturday afternoon, because I'm recording this on Saturday and it's Sunday tomorrow, which is when I'll be posting. So I think every day should have tea and books. Just my thing. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into all the reading and all the books that I want to talk about. Right, so let's get into the books. So the first book that I read in July, I actually didn't read all of it in July. I only finished it in July, but I'm just counting it as a July book. And that was Crooked Kingdom. Lovely edition that I have. Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. It's the second book in the duology of the Six Crows novels. So there's Six Crows and then there's Crooked Kingdom. And basically the Six Crows are this group of criminals, ne'er-do-wells, who sort of like in the first book go on this task to go to break into this ice fortress to get somebody out of it. And this book is basically it's basically the aftermath of what happens at the end of the first book. So basically things go a little bit south, they go a little bit shit, and it's more or less the characters going, oh my god, how do we fix the shit that's happened? And yeah, so there's like lots of stuff that goes on. I won't actually talk about it because I don't want to spoil it, but ultimately it's a really good read. I found both of the books quite long to read, if that makes sense, so it took me ages to kind of get through them. This actually I much prefer to the Six Crows. I actually got about halfway through this book and really got into it. I got hooked. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And I think it's because it's sort of like built up kind of in the first book, and then the ending was kind of like, okay, alright. And then in this one, it sort of built up again, and then lots of stuff happened in the second half of the book. And yeah, there was lots of things that happened. I was like, what? You can't do that! No! But it was just a really good read. I really like Leigh Bardugo's writing. I feel like this series was actually better than the Shadow and Bone, personally. I need to read the King of Scars books, which are about the King of Ravka. If you haven't read the books, I would definitely recommend reading Shadow and Bone first, then these, then the King of Stars, because Scars even, because that's, I think, how they're meant to go, like in terms of the series of what happens, because I think some of the characters from the Six Crows are in King of Scars, and I Yeah, I'm sort of glad I read these first because then I know sort of what happens and yeah, what's happened to some of the characters. So yeah, I'll be reading those next at some point. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. It was really great because actually there's six of the crows, which are the characters in it. But in the first book, only five of the crows have their perspectives written about in the different chapters. Whereas in this one, another of the six crows, Wylan Van Eck, is actually his perspective is put into the book because each chapter is written sort of from the perspective of the characters. So yeah, it's really good that Wylan was actually one of the characters' perspectives in this book. I really actually liked his character. It's funny, in the Six of Crows, I was a bit like umming and ahhing about his character, but actually having read Crooked Kingdom and seen his sort of side of things, it was actually really interesting and I really got behind his character. So yeah, I think it was like really well written and just, yeah, really good. Just a little bit about the edition. It's a bit like the Six of Crows edition I had, which was in red. This one's in gold. And the pages are coloured black on this one, whereas the Six of Crows was coloured red. And a bit like the Six Crows, they had like lovely illustrations. Actually, again, aren't they beautiful? I mean, honestly, I mean. So yeah, these are the Six of Crows, and there's a Casbreca and an Edge. There we are. Yeah, it's just a beautiful edition. So yeah, if you do like the Shadow and Bone series, I would definitely recommend this series. Yeah, like I said, I kind of actually preferred it. So yeah, anyway, but that was the first book I read, or rather finished, in July. The next book I read in July was called The Last Windwitch, and this was picked up because, I mean, it says for ages 8 to 12. That's probably right. It's a children's book. I got it because I'm part of a sort of book group on Instagram, and they pick 9 books each month that you can read, and they're all from different genres. And this was actually picked for June, so I read it in July. Yeah, I should have read it in June, but never mind. I'd already read like a couple of other books in June that they picked, so I sort of ended up reading this a bit late than I should have done, but I still read it. Yeah, it's basically about this girl who she's probably like within the 9 to 12 age group. I think she's sort of about 11 or 12. But yeah, she sort of grows up in this village, and she's a apprentice to a hedge witch. So she's got magic of her own, but it's not very good. She sort of has trouble using it because when she does use it, it sort of works in a different way than the hedge witch that she's apprenticed to. So she gets a bit into trouble because of it, because of what her actions are with her magic. But yeah, in between that, basically there's an evil like queen over, kind of ruling the kingdom, and there are lots of like strange monsters appearing, and there's these really cool like lightning horses that go around causing storm horses, that's what they're called. Lightning horses. Storm horses that go around causing like not natural disasters, but they just have these sort of nature aspect to them, so they cause like storms and other problems. And they're trying to be captured by this evil queen, and Breda kind of decides on herself that she's going to save these storm horses, and she sort of gets involved in all sorts of kind of adventures. And yeah, it was just really interesting, and it's sort of a tale of her kind of learning how her magic worked, and kind of how to kind of look after other people around her and become who she was meant to be, and also learning a bit about her family and her past because she's always thought she was an orphan. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of really good stuff in it. I really enjoyed it actually. It was quite a nice, I say tame, it wasn't tame, it was just a standard 9 to 12 or 8 to 12-year-old book. I've read quite a few of them, and I thought this was like quite, leaned quite nicely into that age group. So if you're looking for a book for that age group, definitely check this one out. It was really enjoyable. I really like the character Breeder. She's like really courageous, and she's a bit reckless sometimes in her actions, but she sort of has a heart of gold. She wants to kind of do the right thing. And yeah, that was one of the key things that I really liked about the character. And yeah, just really liked it. So yeah, very good book. The next book I read, it's a book called Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. I don't know if it's a bit too bright, but there you go. Lovely edition again. And I actually picked this up at Jamaica Inn. So in Cornwall, I went on a holiday to Cornwall, and in Cornwall there's a place called Jamaica Inn. It's an inn, and Daphne du Maurier went there back in the day when she was alive and that, and she was so inspired by the Moors and Jamaica Inn, and she was like, ooh, I want to write a book about that. So she did, and Jamaica Inn was very famous in its time for kind of smuggling rings and stuff like that. And I went to Jamaica Inn itself, and they actually have a museum there of Daphne du Maurier's books and themes from it, and also of the smuggling side of things as well. So they've got quite a lot of interesting stuff there. But you can go for a meal there, and it's just like a really old inn and pub, and it's just got that really nice like oldie worldy vibe. And I picked up this book because I've obviously heard of Daphne du Maurier, and I keep meaning to read some of her famous books like Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel, and I've actually got those two books now to read, primarily because I picked up this and thought it was so good I may as well read some of her other famous works. But this one in particular, and I also bought myself a bookmark. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got Jamaica Inn. There we go. Yeah, that's much better. So yeah, it's got actually Jamaica Inn on it. So I bought myself a bookmark to go with the book, and I used it too. So yeah, I read this book, and oh my god, I think it's one of my favourite books of this year. It was so gothic-y and just eerie and sort of dark in that aspect, but it was really an enjoyable read. So it's about this girl called Mary Yellen, and basically her mother dies and wants her last wish for Mary is to go stay with her aunt at Jamaica Inn. And so Mary goes along and meets her aunt, and also sort of meets her uncle, and is freaked out by him. He's not a very nice man at all. He's violent and a drunk, and basically you find out he runs sort of smuggling rings and stuff like that, and lots of other bleak kind of stuff. And Mary kind of gets sort of drawn into all of this, also into the smuggling side of things, not by her, not from her own will, kind of against her will. And it's about her kind of coming to terms with what's going on around her, and actually finding out ways to kind of survive, but also, if there's a way to stop her uncle, because, he's causing a lot of problems for her aunt. Her aunt is not in a very good place because of her, how should I put it? It's sort of because of her relationship with this horrible man. She's sort of become a different person, and Mary can see her as being this very kind of I don't even know how to explain it, but she's just very cowering and kind of pandering to this horrible man, and she just wants to save her aunt from this, but she doesn't know how. So it's sort of like a story about her wondering how to save her aunt, and and all the smuggling stuff that goes on. And she finds someone who she falls in love with, and she even though she doesn't really want to love him, she still loves him. So there's a bit of romance there going on, and yeah, I feel like I'm not talking this up very well, but it's a really interesting book, and I think that's why I liked it so much. It was kind of quite dark in some aspects, but it just had a lot of action stuff happening, but also a lot of character-led plot, and it was just, I just really, really enjoyed it. There were characters that I really did not like, and then there were characters that I really did like. And actually, Mary, I quite liked her character. She's sort of strong and stubborn, and but again has like this whole promise to herself to kind of look after her aunt and kind of save her aunt from this horrible situation. She obviously just has a really kind nature, as well as being quite stubborn and determined. So yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. So if you haven't read any Daphne du Maurier, I recommend that one. If you have read her before and haven't read Jamaica Inn, I would definitely recommend reading Jamaica Inn. And I actually started reading it when I was on holiday in Cornwall, so it kind of had that eerie aspect as well. Especially as the weather was a bit rubbish when we were there. So yeah, got a little bit of reading in, which was good. So yes, there was that. And then I think the next book I read, I'm sure I was reading another book, but I can't remember which one, so I don't know. But I think the next book I read was The Midnight Library. This was really interesting, actually. So it's by an author called Matt Haig, who I've read some of his other books before. Thoroughly recommend him. He's a really, really good writer. This was an interesting read because it sort of started off basically about this character. She goes through all this like really crap stuff, and trigger alert, she kind of basically doesn't want to live anymore and tries to basically, I don't even want to say it because I feel like I'm spoiling it, but basically she takes matters into her own hands and ends up basically at this midnight library. So I'm not going to spoil it, but basically she's not having a great time, and her actions cause her to go to the Midnight Library. And the Midnight Library is a chance for her to pick up any book, and any book that she picks up is actually another life. So she can live any other life she wants, because obviously her current life she just doesn't enjoy. And there's so many kind of regrets that she has, and she's like, I just want to live a different life. And she gets that chance with the Midnight Library. So the whole premise of the story is her going into these different lives and seeing actually how her life would have been led if she'd made different choices. And it was really, really interesting because it's like, actually, I think the premise of the whole story was the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You make the choices in life, but, as much as you may look back and go, oh, I wish I'd done that, you don't know what will happen if you had made that choice. It could have been worse. You just don't know. And I think that's one of the things that this character finds out in kind of the journey, as it were. She kind of discovers that actually her choices and her actions cause just the same sort of problems, or even worse problems in some circumstances. And it's just a journey really for her, for like understanding what life was all about. And it's just a really, really enjoyable read. I actually read it in only a couple of days, pretty much enjoyed that. and yeah, recommend that. That's a really good book. And I think a lot of people have been raving about it on Instagram and social media and stuff like that. And I would say, yeah, I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. I mean, I really did enjoy it. I read it really quickly. But I kind of feel that sometimes things were a bit kind of repeated, and yeah, I know there were some things that I kind of didn't sit well with me, I suppose. But most of it I really enjoyed, so yeah, I really recommend. So that was that book, and then I went on to read another. So I don't know if you remember, I talked about the last Windwitch as being on the book club, Instagram book club choices for June. So the choice for July for the fantasy, I think it was this book, Victoria Aveyard's Roundbreaker. And yeah, so this book, I've read Victoria Aveyard before. She wrote a series, I can't remember the series name, but I remember the first book name was Red Queen. And I thought, you know what, this sounds really interesting. I wouldn't mind actually checking this book out. And yeah, so I bought the book. And yeah, so it's sort of about this main character called Coraine, who she's a pirate's daughter. She discovers a bit of history about her father, who was this kind of well, basically he had this sort of magic blood, basically, from this other realm. His family, many generations before, were part of this other realm, and so he sort of carried this blood around with him, obviously being part of that bloodline, and so she has obviously got that bloodline as well. And what happens is there's a villain in it who has this sword, who opens up all these doorways to other realms and causes like these horrible monsters to come through. And Coraine is tasked with a sword of her own, and told that she needs to go around and basically close up these doorways. And she's like, okay, well, I don't even know what you're saying to me. I don't even know my father. Well, she never knew her father. So suddenly she's been tasked with this, task basically. And she's like, well, okay, but how do I go about it? And she sort of kind of collects all these people around her. So there's an immortal, there's a squire who was part of the quest that her father was on. There's an assassin, a sorceress, I can't remember, there's 2 others, like a bounty hunter, and just another general forger. And so she gets all these like interesting people around her to sort of group together to go around and find these doorways that have been opened and close them again. And yeah, it's just about all the adventures they get up to and all the problems that escalate from them travelling around, and yeah, the villain trying to stop them. I quite liked it. I wouldn't say it was sort of the best fantasy I've read. It was easy to read, and I read it in probably only about 4 or 5 days, so you can see it probably is a book that is easily readable. But it's, yeah, there were lots of little niggly bits that I didn't like about it. Namely, like, the main character couldn't fight. She had all the other people around her fighting, but she couldn't fight, even though she had this big sword. And no one actually taught her how to fight until like 3/4 of the way through the book. They turned around and go, oh, actually, we've been travelling together for quite a while now. You should learn how to fight. And it's like, well, duh. She hasn't been doing anything this whole time. What have you been doing, you know? You need to be teaching her and showing her what to do. And also, what niggled at me was the fact that, you know, she had this sword and she was told that she needs to stop the villain. And it was like, but it wasn't explained to her what she was supposed to do or how she was supposed to do it. All she knew was like these doorways were being opened and somehow she needed to close them by using the sword. But it's like, well, how is she supposed to do that? And right at the end where she manages to close one of the doors, I didn't even know what happened in that scene. I read it, you know, over and I was like, I'm confused. It doesn't actually show what she's actually doing to close the door. It just sort of closed. So I was confused over that bit, and I feel like I should read it again because I completely missed that. But yeah, apart from that, it was quite enjoyable. I'd recommend it if you want something like easy to read fantasy. But yeah, so I'm intrigued on the next book, but I wouldn't say it's my favourite fantasy. And I feel that, if I'm honest, once I finish the series, I might just have to give it into charity because, yeah, I probably wouldn't read it again, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel really bad about that, but I wouldn't mind reading the other books to see what happens, but it's one of those series that I'm like, I kind of was okay with, but probably give it away. So, yeah, hope that helps. You can determine whether you want to read it or not. Anyway, so yeah, that was the last book I read, and then I started a book. So I should actually finish it today, which is, today I'm actually recording this on the last day of July. So I feel like this book is still going to be part of my July reads. I just haven't finished it yet, but I will probably finish it tonight. So I still want to talk about it in July. So the book that I've got here, it's so shiny, so shiny. It's How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. Now, I don't know if you've read any Holly Black, but if you have, you should know about Cardan, the King of Elfhame, which stems from the series The Wicked Prince, and I think, is it The Wicked Prince? The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. I think that's all the series books. The series, so this is about Cardan, so it's like little short stories about Cardan's kind of perspective on things. I mean, I'm over halfway through already, and I only read it for like about an hour, not even that. So yeah, really quick to read. I got this lovely edition, which has got gold pages. I got this lovely edition, and look at that. I mean, there's beautiful illustrations. I'll see if I can find like a good illustration. There we go. So cool. I got this edition from Fairy Loot. So they sell kind of certain editions and stuff like that. And because I've got all of Holly Black's other series, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get this book because it looks like a really nice edition, and I love Holly Black. She's one of my favourite authors. So yeah, that is one of my July reads. And I don't know if you can hear, but my dog's making a noise. He's somewhere around outside my door. But yeah, he's, if you do hear him, I'm sorry. Anyway, but yeah, so that was my last book for July. Yeah, really good book. So, now that I've gone through all the July reads, I want to go on to all the books for August that I recommend. So we'll go into that. So, without further ado, let's get on to the books that I've chosen for August. So, I actually want to pick one particular book. This was actually one of my July reads. So, apologies, I didn't actually talk about it in my July reads book section. But yeah, so I read this in July. I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it so much I wanted to recommend it as a book for August. It was, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a very kind of summery read. So it's about this girl called Batrice. She lives in 1930s England, and she sort of has a very kind of privileged upbringing, and she's kind of wanting to do more with her life. She's really into science, but her parents kind of want her to marry well, and she's just like, I go against that idea. And sort of her parents are kind of at their last kind of like wit's end kind of thing about her, so they decide to send her away for the summer to Italy to stay with her uncle. And so she goes along to Italy, and actually it's a really big surprise for her because she goes to stay with her uncle, and he's going to be married to this kind of lovely artist woman. He's got a young daughter who's about 14, so Beatrice is about 17, so she's got a cousin who is 14, who she's going to be her companion for the summer. And Bee's like, this is really interesting because actually where she's staying, there's all these like artists coming along because it's like an artist retreat, and she meets all these various kind of creative people, and it sort of inspires her to become like her own woman. And yeah, just like it's really lovely watching her grow through the book. But the main premise of the story is actually it's a love story because she falls in love with one of the artists, or well, she has a summer romance anyway, and they kind of have quite an interesting kind of meet cute, or rather not meet cute, but interesting like interactions when they first meet, and even after that, and they have lots of arguments. So she is a bit kind of like torn. Well, do I really want a romantic kind of interaction with this guy? But they sort of set themselves a bet to see if they can do like a summer romance kind of thing. And yeah, so it's about like the romance, but also about Bee's kind of like growth over the summer and kind of living a bit more than she has in her privileged kind of sheltered upbringing. And she just, blossoms really, and it's just really lovely. It's just a really, really nice book. I love the interactions between all the characters, but most of all between Ben, who is the artist that is the romantic kind of fling that Bee has. And just, yeah, so I love the interactions between Ben and Bee. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It's a really easy book to read. It's a young adult novel. Really quick to get into, and the chapters aren't very long, which is actually quite nice sometimes. And yeah, just overall really enjoyed it. So basically for August, I recommend this as a young adult summery read. If you just want something easy to read, like sit on a beach somewhere, or maybe laze around in the garden on a hammock. I mean, I wish, but yeah. Yeah, if you just want something easy to read and just like pick up and get drawn into the romantic side of summer and stuff like that, then yeah, definitely recommend Under a Dancing Star by Laura Wood. And also just love that cover. I mean, just it's really gorgeous actually. So yeah, I actually had this book for a few years before I read it, and I'm actually like sorry I didn't read it sooner because it's actually really good. But yeah, read it now and want to recommend it for August. So there you go, there's your first recommend. The next one is for fantasy. So I recommend Soul Music by Terry Pratchett. I tried to find some books that are kind of really easy to get into and sort of a bit fun, a bit maybe daring in some aspects. But yeah, just I really enjoyed Soul Music when I read it, and I read it quite a few years ago now, so I feel like I want to reread it, so maybe I'll reread it again for August. But I really enjoyed it. It's basically a take on the music industry, but in the disc world. So I don't know if you've heard of Terry Pratchett, but he wrote a series called The Discworld. And if you haven't heard of The Discworld, I'm like, where have you been? But you might have heard of it, you just might not have read any of the books, or you might have read some of the books, but may not picked up Soul Music yet. So yeah, this is really good. It's number 16 in the Discworld series. But there's kind of mini-series in the Discworld, so there's like characters that come into some of the books, but not all the books. So this is the third book, I think, that is part of the Death series. So Death is a character in Terry Pratchett. He's a really fun character. I really enjoy his character, and I think the first book in the Death series was it was Mort. I was thinking Equal Rights, but no, it's Mort, which, Mort means death anyway. So there's a hint there. But this is got Death in. He decides to take up music, or rather get involved in music because it's going around the Discworld. There's a band that form, and yeah, they end up kind of like getting into rock music, playing all this crazy rock music, and it suddenly starts like causing havoc, and it's sort of alive, this music. So yeah, it's just about the stuff that happens and all the adventures that are caused by this crazy rock music. So yeah, and of course in the Discworld, anything in it has to be magical, so you got magical music. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Really good fun. So yeah, that's my fantasy read recommend for August. The fiction one that I recommend for this month, you've probably heard of it. If you haven't read it yet, you need to. It's called Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, even. I read this good couple of years ago now, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I picked it up because at the time I was working in Waterstones, and I sort of picked up a copy in the staff office and thought, "Ooh, what's this?" And I started reading it, and I was hooked. I loved it. So I actually bought myself a copy, or I got a copy from somewhere, and I read through it, and I read, finished it, really enjoyed it, said to my mum, "Oh, you should read this," gave it to my mum, and then my mum and my dad went over to Hong Kong, because I have a brother who lives out there, and my mum handed it to his wife, who read it, and so far that copy is still in Hong Kong. So I had to buy myself another copy. So actually I got this really nice edition, hardback edition, and it's actually signed by the author. Really cool. Just because I loved the book so much, I wanted to have a copy to keep, and yeah, I really love hardbacks. So the story itself, it's basically about a character called Eleanor Oliphant, and she's an interesting character. She's sort of like, it says here, so Eleanor Oliphant leads a simple life. She wears the same clothes to work every day, eats the same meal deal for lunch every day, and buys the same 2 bottles of vodka to drink every weekend. Eleanor Oliphant is happy. Nothing is missing from her carefully timetabled life, except sometimes everything. So yeah, it's sort of about this character who she feels like she's trying to kind of keep a safe environment, but doesn't get involved with anything or anyone. and there are reasons for that, and it sort of goes into that in the book. But things start to kind of like happen that disrupt the carefully timetable aspect of her life, and she starts getting involved with people and finding out that there's a bigger world out there than her, and she sort of like begins to feel emotions and like gets connections from people, and it's sort of all about that really, but also her coming to terms with a situation when I'm not sure if it's in her childhood or certainly like when she was younger, that she never really dealt with. So yeah, it sort of covers family secrets and sort of all the aspects that go along with that really. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was just really, really a really good book. It was sort of quite funny in aspects, but interestingly, it's sort of like a bit about big themes like loneliness, obviously family, and how actually change is a good thing, and connections are so important in life, and it's about making those connections. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed every aspect of it really. I feel like I want to read it again because I haven't read it for a good number of years, but I've got so many books. I mean, I can only read so many books. Yeah, but anyway, love it, love it, love it. So if you haven't read it yet, I would recommend it. That's my book for August, and it's a really good book to take away on holiday with you, so hence why I'm basically recommending it for August, because it's holiday time. So yeah, so my final book of my August recommendations, I'll grab it now. So it's a non-fiction book, and if you're a bullet journaler, as I am, or Bujo, I don't know. Basically, this is like going to be right up your street. It is Draw Your Own Fonts by somebody called Tony Seddon. There's 30 alphabets in the book, and I'll show you a good one. Hold on. So, like, Carnival freehand. So it shows you like the different fonts, and then it'll give you. Let's see if I can find a blank page. So yeah, and it gives you the numbers as well, and then it gives you a blank page so you can try it out. And it's got 30 of different fonts in there, all really unique. I love this one. I feel like that's a bit too hard for me, but I don't know. Let's see how it works. It's all like squiggly, like spaghetti. That's why it's called Spaghetti Junction. Sorry, my nose is itchy. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. I haven't done all of them yet. I've done a few of them. So I'll see if I can find one that I've done. She says, oh yeah, so I think I did this one. So this is Butterman. So then I started drawing it and colouring them in. So yeah, it's just really good fun to try out the different fonts, and because I love bullet journaling, I wanted to kind of use that and practice out different fonts, so maybe I could use it in my bullet journal. I want to do a bit more lettering anyway, so that was a good one. Still working my way through it, but if you're looking for something to do over the summer holidays, if you've got some time off, or if you're maybe over uni, you've got like the summer off or whatever, and you want to kind of try something different and do something new, I would definitely recommend this book. I think I've got an old edition one. I think a new edition has come out, so that'll be linked in the description, kind of all the books and where you can get them. But yeah, so that was like really good book that I recommend. And that's basically all the books for August. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed this video. Click subscribe, like the video if you liked it, and yes, obviously subscribe for more videos. I want to try and do a video every week on a Sunday, so yeah, click subscribe and you will get notified when my new video is up. So yeah, well, thank you guys for joining me on the sort of book recommends and book reads, and hope you guys have a good rest of the week, and see you soon. Bye.